Disney has paid big bucks to get Robert Downey Jr., Joe and Anthony Russo, and even Stephen McFeely back to bring another movie on the scale of Endgame. But did you know that Netflix has almost that entire crew of characters coming in to do a movie for them? That one starring Chris Pratt and more people from the MCU. But you're not going to see that in theaters. Let's talk about what's going on with Netflix here on That Park Place. We all know that the Russo brothers are a big get for Disney. Does anybody remember off the top of their heads how much money the Disney company had to spend to bring the Russo brothers back in order to direct those next Avengers films?
Between 40 and 80 million?
I do believe so. It disappeared on me here for a moment. With that, though, they also brought in I want to say Stephen McFeely being one of the writing pair that worked on most of the Captain America films and then the Avengers films as Marcus and McFeely. They also worked on Agent Carter, in my opinion, one of the better endeavors from Marvel Television there. Not to count the Netflix shows.
Yeah, well, I mean, back before they were absconded by Disney outright. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. Well, it looks like before they come over and work on an Avengers film that Marcus and McFeely, well, maybe not Marcus and McFeely, at least McFeely, and also Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt and the Russo brothers are all working on a film for Netflix, which I just have to wonder if there was a movie, a big budget movie about living animatronics in the style of Disneyland, how that would do in the box office. This movie is called The Electric State. And imagine a future in ruins, but it's actually not the future. The story takes place in 1994 in the aftermath of a battle between humanity and artificial intelligence that ended in a devastating stalemate. The people who died were buried. The automatons who were destroyed rusted away where they fell. The defeated robots have been banished to an exclusion zone in the southwestern desert, while human society attempts to rebuild without the help of mechanical beings it's created. With the backdrop of The Electric State, the sprawling new adventure film from Avengers of Infinity War and Endgame filmmakers Joe and Anthony Russo, the project combines a coming-of-age road trip comedy with philosophical musings about what makes someone or something actually alive. You can recognize humanity in technology, and you can recognize inhumanity in humans, Anthony Russo says in this exclusive first look. Both things are possible. That's the struggle. And they talk about the fact that these guys are responsible for some of the highest grossing films of all time with Marvel. And you could say that it was because of Marvel, but when they left, Marvel also stopped being popular. Of course, Robert Downey Jr. leaving also coincided with them not being popular. They weren't exactly working on small canvases before, but the brothers say The Electric State, debuting on Netflix in early 2025, reinvigorated their desire to make vast fantasy epics again. Sounds like maybe they were exhausted. That was unintentional as of several months ago, but this movie is actually a remarkable story of a bridge for us back to that, Anthony says. It's an interesting prelude returning to Marvel and trying to continue that story forward. Look at that image right there. I'm just going to say, this movie actually interests me, and there's nothing to get excited about because it's just going to be on Netflix. I went to go see The Wild Robot with my kids the other day, and that is something that I will remember, I hope, for the rest of my life, because I was trying to remember the last time that I went to go see a film with them, and I thought it was awesome. I'm going to say Sonic the Hedgehog, which my kids suckered me into going to see that 3 times. I say suckered. All it takes is, hey, Dad, do you want to go see a movie? Can we please go see a movie? And I'll probably say yes, because I love going to the movie theater with my kids. But this is a movie from top quality talent that should be making blockbuster films. And instead, it's going to be hey, honey, do you want to watch this on Netflix tonight? Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I do want to see that, but not tonight. We got to get to bed. We got to get to bed because we got to get up early in the morning. Let's not watch something long. Let's just watch an episode of this show. Oh, but by the end of that, we'll end up watching something else after, and we'll end up taking just as much time. This is a film that I don't know anything about it, but seeing it here, I think this could be a big hit in theaters, but instead it goes to streaming and essentially into nothingness. Yeah, am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. I think Bob Chapek was actually asked about this specific issue during an earnings call back when he was the CEO of the Walt Disney Company, and he talked about how our animated films have definitely have a life on some of these on these streaming platforms, but that's not necessarily indicative of just about any other player in the game. It seems like when these direct to streaming films come out on these platforms, I mean, they go into the cultural void, so to speak. The lack of cultural impact when it comes to these specific films is startling, especially when you consider that the shows and series on these same platforms, at least if they're done with quality and they catch on, they make a tremendous impact. So it's just quite stunning to see the contrast there. And it's unfortunate that this film will likely fall victim to that.
I agree. Culture. If this was in theaters, would you be interested in it just on what little we've talked about?
Sure.
It's got Chris Pratt in it. He's funny. It's got Millie Bobby Brown, who for some reason is allergic to going into theaters.
First of all, visually, this looks amazing, but they'll set that aside. I'm one of those people that I'm going to go see films because I'm going to review them so other people can, decide whether or not it's worth their money. But when I look at stuff like this that's uber creative, I think that it might be something that we're missing, and I like to approach things with as open a mind as I possibly can, just like I will be doing today when I see the Joker, Folie whatever it's called, Folie Dieu. Whatever, Joker 2.
Yeah.
But this, like you said, I mean, you can set this up and make it quite interesting. It's an amalgamation of other types of features that we've seen before, but done in a creative way, perhaps. I don't know. I think we've fallen into, in Hollywood or any form of entertainment, we've fallen into this unfortunate pattern of just making sequels and threequels and rebootquels and stuff like that, or stealing from other better properties. I mean, it could be argued that, the original Joker film was stolen, from Taxi Driver and some other things, right? The king of comedy and so on. So, which is why this second film has got such terrible reviews so far. But what bothers me now is because we've been subjected for so long to inadequate entertainment, disappointing entertainment, whatever term you want to use there. Jonas, I think films like The Wild Robot are underperforming and will continue to underperform going into this weekend.
I think that, and you've mentioned the underperformance, and what's interesting to me is to watch Deadline talk about, okay, well, this is the best performance for an original IP in theaters. It's not completely original. It's a book, but translating from book to screen, that can count as original IP. But obviously Universal Studios kept the budgets in line. DreamWorks, I think, reportedly paid $75 million to make this film.
Right.
We weren't hearing about it for 10 years before it got made, so the odds of that being true are a lot higher. Due to the way that the deals between Netflix and NBC Universal work right now, it might have been between $50 to $75 million paid by Netflix directly. They could have paid for the film itself based on selling it to Netflix, but before they even get it before it even gets into theaters, the film has been essentially paid for. They kept the marketing budget down. So I think if theaters are going to survive, we need more films like The Wild Robot, and we need to set thresholds that are more reasonable. I think not everything needs to come out of the gate making $100 million on an opening weekend and have every single ticket imaginable, and it needs to destroy whatever else is next to it. But The Wild Robot was #1 movie at the box office. I think they're going to make money on that film for a very long time, and I wouldn't be surprised.
I hope it has legs, and I hope it beats Joker 2 this weekend. I really do.
Oh, I think I have no doubt that it's going to be Joker 2.
I think Roz is an intriguing character, and you're right. I mean, they did keep the budget in line, but a $60 million performance, over the course of the last several days, it might be disappointing. I'm just saying. I mean, what do you think the ultimate earnings for the film is? I mean, the production budget being around $80 million and the prints and ads, P&A, being maybe equal to that, another 80 million, you're 160 million all in.
I think I would not be surprised to see a film like The Wild Robot get to 500 million at the box office, which the threshold for a Disney film is that they don't consider a film at Disney profitable until it reaches $600 million, which I think is actually a little bit on the low side. But considering some of the other franchises, and I'm not trying to compare The Wild Robot to Despicable Me in any way, but Despicable Me right now is sitting at just under $1 billion.
Yeah, on a similar budget.
Yeah, very quietly, almost getting to $1 billion, which is, I think, is something that people underestimate.
Well, and
it's on a similar content spend as well. When they actually make the film, I'm sure
$80 million.
Carell and that cast is probably more expensive. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's more money being put into the cast on that one. But I think Wild Robot makes its money back. This is enough for them to greenlight a sequel and probably a meet and greet at Universal theme parks.
Yeah, no, I think you're correct. And wouldn't that be a creative attraction as well? I mean, it really would be. It would be quite interesting to see, as long as it's not screen based. I'm tired of screens. But in looking at, I mean, that's all Disney's going to give us now. It's like roles are reversed. Universal used to be the land of screens, and now it's Disney that's the land of screens. But and my argument here is Despicable Me still underperformed, because had they windowed it in place of where they allowed Disney to get out in front of them with Inside Out 2, I think Inside Out 2 would not have done as well. I think most people would have fallen in love with Despicable Me first, and it would have been the favored thing instead of dropping 2 weeks later. I thought that was very poor timing, poor windowing, in my opinion.
I'm doing some pretty quick math here. You were talking about how much the spend might be on a film like Wild Robot and what it would have to achieve to at least break even. I think that threshold might be around the $360 million mark, which I think it will absolutely achieve. But I do agree with you. It is wild how even book adaptations like The Wild Robot simply don't do as well because, man, it's become so franchise oriented at the marketplace.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that means they're not going to put as much money behind it in marketing and promotion. They're not going to spend as much. And again, I'm going to tell you, I suspect that they probably took us an unfavorable cut to get that into as many theaters as possible. So it may have to get closer to 400 million to be profitable.
That's a fair point.
And I think they'll get there. I think they'll get there. And this will. So. My purchase of a 4K will be adding to the eventual total for this film.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.